I'm here with, what's your name?
Stefan.
Stefan. He won the OTS at Galaxy this weekend.
Yep.
Got first place. It was awesome. And here's the deck profile for him. He plays Sky Strikers.
Yo, what is up? So this is the Sky Striker build I played. This build is slightly different from the one I played, but it's the one I would have played had I had the opportunity. There are only like a couple tech choices different, and I think all those are on the side deck anyway, so it's basically the same deck. Anyway, we'll get started. 3 copies of Sky Striker Ace Ray. The only Sky Striker main deck monster you play 3 of her. You need to see her or a way to get to her as quickly as possible. 3 copies of Ghost Ogre and 2 copies of Ash. I'd normally play 2 and 2 for hand traps because you don't really want to open multiples of it, but Ogre has an interaction with the field spell where if you activate the field spell on a set card, you can Ogre it, and then the field spell summons Ray from deck. Again, more ways to get to your engine is really good. With only 1 drones, you kind of just have to get creative at times. Also, I think Ogre's probably one of the best hand traps in this format just because it hits so much.
Yes.
Can hit Firewall when your opponent's trying to combo off, can hit Gumbler if your opponent's trying to hit stuff. Also a bunch of random like fields, also a bunch of random like continuous cards it hits. Also hits multi-roll in the mirror, which can be huge if your opponent's trying to make a big push and committing to it. And it hits Boral Sword if they're trying to push for no TK as well.
Yep.
I also play 3 copies of Upside from Pure Gamma, and good lord, this thing always shows up in my opening hand.
You never want to draw it, and then it's always there.
It's always there, yeah, I know. But honestly, I don't think I'd ever not run the Gamma package. It's just really good for dealing with hand traps. You rarely have monsters on your side of the field, and especially games 2 and 3, I find I usually just try and multi-roll away my own monster to leave my field empty because people usually just citing Kaijus to turn off your spells, so this counters their monster effects. It's also very useful going second against combo decks. You can hit something like Summon Sorceress with it, and does a lot more than just ashing it because it also takes away their link arrows as well, and can set them back basically an entire turn. 2 copies of Phantom Sky Blaster. Honestly, this thing bricks at 3, and most of the time when I won games, I didn't even resolve this thing. This is obviously the card that makes Boral Sword, but 90% of the time I was just like winning with Sky Striker cards anyway, and like the other 10% I was winning with that Mega Beatdown. 3 copies of Engage. I really hope I don't need to explain why you play 3 of this card. It's Pot of Greed, but you get to search one of the cards.
Yeah, exactly.
It recurs itself. Like, always play the maximum number of copies you're allowed. If it gets semi-limited, you play 2. If it gets limited, you play 1. If it gets banned, find another deck to play.
Yeah.
No, if it gets banned, I'll still make this deck work because I like this deck so much. I think it's probably one of the best, I don't know if it's quite tier 0, but I think it's one of the best decks of the format just because there's a lot of counterplay to it. 3 copies of Widow Anchor. Also really good. You can steal links, make them in the mirror, etc. You can just negate effects a lot of the time. You can steal your opponent's link monsters to link climb with them. Much like Engage, this thing is really good. Play 3. In the mirror, it's also another copy of your engine starter, which is really nice. 3 copies of Multi-Roll, and 3 copies of the Field Spell. I'm mentioning these together because they combo with each other. Roll target Field Spell goes to grave, summons Ray from deck, and then they can't respond to your spells for the turn. This thing also, you can use the Field Spell's effect on Ray, and then Chain Ray effect to tag out. You can potentially excavate 3 to go +1 and get the link play. Again, I play 3 of each because this just lets you dig through your deck for an engine starter if you don't have one, or lets you draw an additional card if you need to. And multi-roll can make all of your spell speed 4, which can be very useful if you can resolve it. Multi-roll also lets you set a whole bunch of spells from your graveyard at the end phase of the turn as well, so that's pretty nice. And then for the 1 of Sky Striker spells, 1 Jamming Waves, 1 Afterburner, 1 Hercules Base, 1 Shark Cannon, 1 Drones, RIP, and 1 Eagle Booster. So I only play 1 Eagle Booster. I only play 1 of each of these. The 1 Eagle Booster is a bit the most interesting one, I think, just because a lot of people have been playing 2 or 3. It's searchable, it's recurable, and it's bricky by nature because it's not a starter, so I only play 1. Base is purely to recycle the links. I usually resolve this thing's graveyard effect like at least once in a game, especially in the mirror. I've seen some builds not run it. I don't know why. These are obvious. This is just graveyard shenanigans, plus you can steal your opponent's link monsters if they link climbed, and then link climb yourself. You also get to steal the monsters in their grave and get their effects as well, which so has its uses over Widow Anchor as well. Like if if you're playing against like ABC or something, you steal their Buster. If you're playing against Dinos, you steal their UCT. Bunch of shenanigans with that.
Yeah.
Drones, I'd probably play at least 2, maybe 3 if you could, but unfortunately Trickstars were abusing it better than this deck was, and so it got banned. Unfortunate. We have 1 Rhoda, 1 copy of Terraforming, and 2 copies of Call by the Grave. Obviously, you run the 1 copy because it's another copy of Ray, Terra's another copy of the Field Spell. I only play 1 Terraforming because like you don't want to open too many copies of the Field Spell due to being bricky by nature, because each copy after the first one is snag 1, and you can't even like activate 1 Field Spell, set the next one, and then use it because they have to be set in the field zone.
Yeah.
And 2 Call by the Grave. I run it because I max max out on it. I almost never hit hand traps with it, partly because I play the Gamma package anyway, but also partly because unless they're going to hand trap my only play, I'd rather just have this as an additional form of graveyard disruption. So it's more of just like it's just another layer of disruption you have rather than trying to protect your own plays. And for the traps, we have 2 copies of Infinite Impermanence and 2 copies of Typhoon. I play Typhoon because it's useful for like the shotgunned anti-spells, and it isn't itself susceptible to Imperial Order as well. Impermanence, you can use it for effect negation going second. You can also set it in the column as a floodgate, flip it, and then try and pop off the turn that floodgate is disabled. We have 3 copies of Kagari, 3 copies of Shizuku, and 2 copies of Hayate. I'd probably play 3 if I had room in the extra deck, but honestly the extra deck space is really tight as it is, and I've never really found myself needing a 3rd one. Having base to be able to recycle them helps as well. 1 copy Space Insulator. This one turns Skyblaster tokens into an effect monster. It also has interactions with the Topologics. I play Trisbane and Bomber Dragon. Basically, if you link climb this into one of these, this thing's effect Engrave immediately resolves because these are both Cyberse links. It summons itself to its only points 2 and immediately triggers their effects. So it immediately triggers board wipes. 1 Cerberus, 1 Phoenix, Link Climbing, generic outs to things. Phoenix makes Skyblaster 1 card out to Rivalry, which is nice. Still waiting for the out to go so I can find in this deck, but it's not to be, I guess. 1 Trisbane, can out back row heavy decks, usually in the resolve it when I'm intending to win that turn. 1 Topologic Bomber Dragon. I've made this going first against Goki and Heroes sometimes. They can really struggle to out it because they cannot make any kind of link climbing plays while it's on the field. Just nukes their board every time they try. If you have a token face down, you can also resolve that. If you have a Graveyard Ray effect, you can resolve that as well. 1 copy of Boral Sword. This is basically a primary win condition, or your secondary win condition anyway. Your primary win condition is Sky Striker plays, but if you can make Skyblaster into this thing, it just like OTKs in pretty much any game state.
Like it'll just kill everything on the board.
That's basically it, yeah. And finally, the 1 copy of Omega. I play the Cyframe package. This thing can loop out of the extra monster zone so it doesn't disrupt my plays, and it can hand loop my opponent, which is really nice. You can also have the same interactions with the field spell as you do with it, although it's a bit risky because if your opponent failures it, you just lose the Omega. But it's fine, you just like recycle one of your links back into the extra deck, so it's all good. And for the side deck, we have 2 copies of Cypher Gear Epsilon. So this is an interesting tech. I sided going second against Trickstars, as well as siding it versus Altergeists and Paleozoics, as well as like the occasional True Draco that'll show up as well. Mostly going second versus Floodgates. They shotgun the anti-spell, you play this, destroys their anti-spell, you get a free Omega, you loop another card out of their hand. Feels good. 2 copies of Sphere Mode, going second against combo decks. It's helpful to have. I play most of my side deck cards at 2-ofs for the same reason I play a lot of 1-ofs in the deck, because anything that's not an engine starter, I don't want clogging my hand. 2 copies of Shared Ride, good for the mirror, good versus Trickstars. Not quite so good versus Trickstars I found, but it's definitely good in the mirror. 1 Twin Twisters, back row hate. 2 copies of Anti-Magic Arrows. This is actually an interesting tech I've been experimenting with. It's a counter to Evenly Matched, because when they go enter battle phase, you say at start of battle phase, flip it. They can't respond to it. They can't use spell cards for the rest of the turn. It's a bit risky because it turns off your spells as well. But at the same token, if they are going into battle phase for Evenly Matched, it can also be used with the Boral Sword OTK because they can't respond to it. And of course, it's a spell card, so you can activate it and put it in grave and do stuff like that. 2 copies of Different Dimension Ground.
Pesky Goki matchup.
Yeah, versus Goki, versus Heroes, versus any kind of like combo deck I've found is pretty useful. It can occasionally pop up against some rogue matchups I've found. 2 copies of Evenly Matched. I really hope I don't need to explain this one.
That one is
It's been in the meta for a year in various degrees of it just wipes boards. Good versus Demise decks, good versus Set 5 pass decks. And a lot of the decks that you're going to resolve it against aren't typically decks that can run Red Reboot, meaning they either have to side in Wiretap or lose all of their cards, which is nice. And finally 2 copies of Curse Seal, the Forbidden Spell. This thing wins games. Just basically that's what it does. You can resolve it against the right spell in the right deck, you just win the game. It also happens to be Twin Twister Pate every single time I've resolved it, and it kind of sucks. The discard cost is a bit annoying, but it's not the end of the world, and it's not too difficult to meet. It's more like losing a resource. Because, even though Curse Seal is a blowout card, it's an inerrant neg, because you're, because you have to discard, and it just, you have to discard, so it's neg 1. But again, if you resolve it against Engage, you auto-win. If you resolve it against, Light Stage, if you resolve it against Invocation, it can
There's a lot of stuff that you can, like, activate it on, and you, like, have so much
you
lead
just, like,
off of that.
That's basically what it is. And that's about it.
Stefan with his Sky Strikers.
Yep.